service first, right? Connection and relationship first, and the business will flow anyway. So the last couple of transactions came from mom's group, but because we became friends first, right? Again, real estate is a contact sport, right? You have to make connections. And when you make genuine connections, it takes you a long way.
Welcome to the Raquel Show. This show is for entrepreneurs who want to play bigger in business and in life. And today I have a very special guest that I've had the honor of having front row seats, not only to her growth, but several transitions in her life. She's a top producer, an entrepreneur, and investor who focuses on personal growth and leadership. She came to the US in 2010 on a tennis scholarship from Nepal. And I seen her not only grow in her first year in real estate, seen her marry her best friend and become a new mama along with building her business. One of the challenges when it comes to entrepreneurship is how do we manage it all? How do we prep for life changes? And how do we continue to grow our business and work with your spouse? And so I'm excited to have this conversation. Welcome to the show, Pri Ruan.
Thank you, Raquel. Wow. What an honor because, you are a friend, a sister, my coach. Literally, like you said, right? You've seen every transition of my life. When we first met, I was not married, running from one transaction to the next, like always on the go. And then, I got married, you were at my baby shower. Yeah. So much happened in such a short period of time, but yeah, so grateful for you to be in our lives. And just super excited, what the next phase is going to look like.
Well, I am super honored to have you on our show. I'm super honored that I know that this episode will inspire a lot of different people, whether you're a new mom, a dad, or, just have family or relationships. I think this is going to highlight a lot of different things. And I want to kind of dive right into it, right? Yeah. I think change is very hard for a lot of people. And it seems you went through, like you said, change it all at once. I also kind of left out that you moved during those periods, right? You moved from different homes. And here's what I would ask is change something easy that comes to you?
I think because I grew up playing tennis and I had to travel without my parents, with coaches, and then I came to the US on a tennis scholarship when I just turned 19, and every summer I would go and teach tennis in different states. So I think that kind of gave me just this opportunity to just be used to change. And also when I came into business and when I understood that change is actually good, then I actually take change as the growth. Because at times it can feel like, I'm so used to doing things one way. But when you are into personal development and you're reading these books and you're listening to your mentors and coaches, when they say that, hey, change is good because it takes you out of your comfort zone, then that change, I feel like, becomes positive instead of a negative.
It's so interesting. I was actually listening to a reel this morning and it was talking about Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Beyonce, Oprah, and how they define stress as a good thing, and stress equals pressure and opportunities. And I think it's the same with what you said. It's like how you define change can determine your outcome, right? And for you, and I didn't know that, I knew that you came in to the States on a scholarship, but I think one of the things that I notice, even with you saying that, is when you embrace change, you're able to, and I'm sure your past has helped you adapt to different people, different environments very quickly, which is, I think, one of the reasons why you're so good at relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so being a new mom requires transition, as you know, whether you're ready for it or not. And real estate, on the other hand, is very demanding. So how do you prepare for it if you can look back, or what are some of the lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I think just asking for help. I think sometimes as, I don't know, like women or like, entrepreneur, business owner, you're like, I got this, like, let me do all of this. But I think when you're a new mom, like you have so many changes going on physically, emotionally, just all the changes, like, mentally and all that. And being able to just communicate that with your partner, with your family, like it was so hard for me to ask for help. Like I felt like I was creating like trouble for them or and whatnot. But people actually like to help, right? And especially like, I was able to ask for help. I was able to communicate better with my husband, which I feel like our marriage got better because in the past I used to be like, oh, like you should know what I need, but now it's like, no, they don't know. Like you have to like kind of tell them exactly. So being able to communicate and tell them like, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I need help with. Hey, I'm writing an offer. Like it's going to be a long day. There was one day where we started at 12 p.m. And by the time we were in negotiation and ratified, it was 10 p.m. So that was a 10-hour long day. So also, having supportive family and husband. And I think just being able to communicate that, like, what do you need is very important.
Yeah. So you bring up a really good point because real estate can start at 12 and then you can show properties and not have a 8 to 5. I'm off at 5. No matter what, going to be home by 6 through traffic. Right. So how do you get like your significant other to be on board? Like
Yeah.
with your business. And I think this goes a long way because you guys also just kind of got married as well, right? Like, do you guys establish rules or boundaries or what that looks like or when to give grace? I'm curious because I know that a lot of people, go through that. And I've seen even moms that like have taken care of their kids and they go back into real estate and the husband's not necessarily supportive because
Mhm.
they've been so used to,
Yeah.
having them at home with the kids.
Yeah. I think as a family, you need to understand what your goals are, right? For us and our family, the number one thing is God, family, and then business,
Mhm.
right? So then sometimes, okay, we got to like recalibrate, right? So things feel off. Like, what's our goal, right? Like going to church every Sunday is non-negotiable for us. Family time, right? And then business. And when things and there's no boundaries honestly with real estate, it's a lifestyle, right? And this
Yeah.
is something that I learned from you, that real estate is a lifestyle. And especially in this market, with the changing market, the buyers, you have to make sure that they feel comfortable, they feel safe. And even though like I want to tell them, hey, don't call me after 8 p.m., we're negotiating till 10 p.m., right? And I get it. Like they have this fear, right? They're like my new kids, right? Literally got to hold their hands and walk through the
Mhm.
process. So I think just having like your family goal first, right? Now that we know what our goal is and some of the things are non-negotiable, then we just kind of like, cater to that, right? Like on Sundays is a big day, like, that's like church day, serving day, meeting new families day. Then I am starting to do open house on a Friday, right? Like this week.
So, how do you manage it all from like being a new mom, running a business, having your time with your husband? And we'll
Mhm.
get to Juan, right? Because the audience doesn't know him yet. But like, how do you manage it all? Because I think sometimes as women, we put a lot on our shoulders.
Yeah, it's not easy. Honestly, it's not easy, especially like your first year as a new mom. You're running your business full force, and all of a sudden now you have a baby, and you're adjusting just everything, like physically, mentally, emotionally. But I think it's understanding that, like, grace, right? You brought up that word grace, like having grace for yourself, having grace for your husband, and just your family overall. Like there's just no time to like bicker about little things, like, like there's like bigger goals, like bigger family goals that we need to get done. Then it's just we don't get hung up in those little things. And I think it's just like when you're an entrepreneur and business owner, like you just have this mentality of like get it done, right? Like whatever it takes. Like, I mean, there's some times where I was just like I just didn't feel like leaving the house. Like I was leaving Roman for the first time, and it just felt, oh my God, like I miss my baby, right? But then realizing that I'm doing this for my baby, then you change that narrative. And then you just feel better about serving your clients and then building your business.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Mom guilt, right? That comes up a lot in like women in business, mom guilt, or even like people, the women that are pursuing their careers and like in the corporate world. Do you experience it at all?
I experienced when I left the house for the first time I left the house, I was constantly like, oh, what is Roman doing? Like, did he eat? Like, did he, drink his milk? And then I was kind of like feeling bad that I left the house for a couple of hours. And then I was like, oh, like, I don't know what this feeling is. And then I think that's what the mom guilt is, right? That you feel like you're taking time away from your kid to build your business. But then again, it's like reminding yourself that I'm building this for them, like because I want to leave a legacy for them. And I think it happens. Mom guilt is real. It happens. But I think like, how do we change that story, the story that we tell ourselves of like, hey, this is not actually taking time away from my family. I'm actually making my family better, and whether you're a stay-at-home mom, right? Go for it. Like, whatever works. Like if you want to do business, you want to stay at home mom, like, hey, stay at home mom is a hard job as well. It's
Yeah.
a 24/7 job, So I think it's just like the story that we tell ourselves, right? Like the people that we're surrounding with, like, and I know that you've built a business with 2 kids, I've seen that done. So then it gives me, in our coaching calls, I think I remember, you're like, hey, you can do it. So sometimes you just want to hear that, sometimes you just want someone there for you and rooting for you and cheering for you and that has already done it, right? Like you've done it. There's other women that have done it. So I know like I can do it as well. Yeah.
You dropped a lot of nuggets in your answer, I would say. And I know some people are going to rewind this episode just to listen to that, but I think it's like so true in anything is how you rewrite that narrative that you're believing, right? As you go through life changes, as you go through different things. And that's one thing that I think the audience needs to hear is what definition or what story are you going to tell yourself? Like you look back and say, I really built the legacy for Roman, right? And so what advice would you give to people out there, to entrepreneurs who are considering starting a family?
I think like your journey is going to be different, right? Everyone's journey is going to be different. Like, don't compare yourself with other people. Like, don't look at social media and be like, oh, like this person, this lady bounced back in like 3 weeks. Your body is different. Like, it might take a little bit longer for you. Like, you don't have to live up to this society like thing, you know what I mean? Like do what works for you. Like for some people, like you might need 5-6 months to like just kind of heal your body, like get your emotional back to like what it used to be. I feel like at 8 months I'm finally getting into the rhythm of things, right? But I think like with women, like you have all this like pressure of like, oh, like bouncing back, like pre-body baby, like, oh, back to business, like all these things that the society or the world says. And then you go into your Instagram and you look at these perfectly pictured photos that people post. Like, I think then you start comparing, you go into this rabbit hole of like, oh, why is it for them, but not for me? Right. So I think like, social media is not real all the time. So I would say like your journey is different and have grace for yourself. Like I think enjoy the process, right? Trust the process, enjoy the process and do what works the best for you and your family.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's who you become in the process that really does matter, right? Whether it's you being the mom that you wanted to be or you being the wife that you wanted to be. And I think, like I said, you said a lot of gold in that. And man, if I could have had this type of interview when my kids were little to look back at now, one is almost 18, to have him listen to like, look at how your mom talked when she first had you, what a gift. So one thing I know about you is that you're super intentional with your time, your relationship, and you can even hear it as I'm like asking you questions. You're involved in, you said church, right? Sundays is family day, church day. You're also involved in networking groups. And there's even one month where you guys had so many dinners, right? How do you think that has helped your business today?
Yeah, I think me and my husband, we operate from like a service mindset. So I don't see myself as a real estate like sales. Like I see like service, like, oh, this is a service. Like who needs my service? How can I help? Who's the next family that I'm going to help? Right. So I think we come from a mentality of like, how do we give first? Right. I think in it's the opposite, right? Of like, oh, like sometimes you're only like taking, right? Like, but you got to contribute first, like contribution first. We're always looking at like, how can we genuinely like connect with people, right? I think anyone can buy real estate, right? But it's that experience that they're going to have with us, like the care and the love that we have for these families, like it really shows. So we love hosting people, like we just love people, like, and I think that's why this business is perfect for us, because we care about people. We love to talk to people. We love connecting with new people. Like that's just what we like to do. Yeah, they ask like, what do we like to do for fun? We just go to dinner parties, or we host people. And that's all we do for fun.
That's so good. And that's our secret sauce, right?
Yeah, just like service first, and then I think like everything will flow eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. So you recently brought your hubby, your husband, to the business, or he's recently joined you, right? Was that always part of a plan? And let me ask you guys, did you guys do business before him getting his real estate license? Were you guys involved in other companies, just so that the audience kind of knows like background on that?
Yes. So we first worked together. So when we first met, my husband's been an entrepreneur since he was 18. And I didn't know the business world. I didn't know personal development. So I had to do a lot of growing. And then the first book he gave me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I was like, well, I guess we're exchanging books. I gave him some random fiction book. I don't even know what I gave him. But that book really like opened my eyes, like my mindset. And we had worked in a business prior, and it wasn't easy, right? Right now, people look at us and like, oh, power couple, like, how do you guys do it? Like, look, we've been through like some really low times, right? And it really made us strong. Like looking back, there was times where like, I would cry and be like, oh, I can't do this. I would quit like multiple times, but show up again. Right.
Yeah.
So I think
Give
going
us an
through that.
example of like what a low time meant for you guys, just so that people could, because people see you guys now on social media and people will listen to this episode and they'll see where you guys are at today. But I think what makes couples really, really strong is if they can weather the storm, to be quite honest.
Yeah. So I think there was multiple times where I felt like, oh, like we were in the grind mode of our building our first business. And I think we didn't know when to take the business hat off, and then, with our girlfriend and boyfriend hat on. And then Juan is very detailed. I am like the go and figure it out later. And then there was a time where I had to like figure out the details, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, this is not me. I quit, like this is not for me. And it was all of that, the growth, right? The change, right? Like you said, right? You're changing and it's uncomfortable and you don't want to do it. So there was many times that I said I quit, but then I showed up again, right? Mm-hmm. But we went through so much of that in our previous business. Now we really know how to work together. We know what he's good at. He knows what I'm good at. And we kind of like have a mentality of like, okay, divide and conquer. We don't need to be in the both, same place at the same time. We can maximize our time and such. One thing that really helped us, I would say, is like we would go on these personal development events, right? Events really changed us. So we're always growing. If you're not growing together, one person is going to get left behind. Mm-hmm. And that's just the reality of it, because your mind is expanding and you want to grow together. If you're not growing, then you're dying. There's a saying, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think I just had chills when you said that, because that is such a powerful statement. And I think people underutilize that statement, that if you're not growing together, you're dying, and some will grow faster than the others. And I see this a lot, especially in 2 decades of this industry, right? Is where the woman or the man will grow so much faster. But I also think, as like for me, like, and a mentor gave this to me, is there's a responsibility when you're outgrowing. Let's say I was outgrowing Brad. It's my responsibility to help him come along side by side with me and be like, here's what I learned. Here's what we're doing, right? What do you think about it? Right? Because if not, they're going to feel like they're not a part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's just so key when it comes down to relationships, power couples, or whatever you want to say, that there has to be some type of respect, trust. Like you said, divide and conquer. That doesn't happen without trust, without simultaneous like foundation of trust, right? Because you can say divide and conquer, and you see it with couples. One goes so fast and one doesn't. And then they're like, you're messing up the business, right? Then it becomes the blame game. Right. So I think what I love about you guys is you guys are able to have such a great foundation to build pretty much anything. I'm curious, like, do you guys even have disagreement? Because in my eyes, I'm like, there's no way I could ever see them like have disagreements. And if you guys do, like, how do you manage or how do you stop the business hat from the like the relationship hat, or is it all like integrated together?
Yeah. So I think, again, when we first started dating, right, we would have disagreements, and I'm the kind where I just shut down.
Mhm.
Right. And then Juan is like, well, then I become unapproachable. Right. And then he's like, oh, well, take your time, babe. Like when you're done, then we'll talk. And I'm like, I'm waiting for you to, come and talk to me, but I'm just not approachable. So then I went into like, hey, why am I doing this? Right. And then I think I used to see my parents do this, and I learned it from somewhere, and then figure out that this is not healthy. Right. You don't know what you don't know. But when you know, then you want to change that. So then I started like maybe writing a letter or writing a note and telling him how I feel, or writing on notes and sharing the notes. So like figuring out that, hey, you have to communicate, you love each other at the end of the day. So you have to figure out like how to communicate, right? How to
Yeah.
communicate. So now I'm at a place where I'm like, okay, I know myself. Look, I'm feeling something. I tell him, look, I am feeling this way. And before I shut down, before I, like go crazy, let me just tell you what's going on. Right. So I think the more you communicate and the more you have grace for each other, and then the more you focus on the bigger goals and the goals that you set for your family, then again, I said like little things, you just don't have time for little disagreements here and there. But then the bigger disagreement is like communicate, like just
Yeah.
communicate, like, and safe space, right? If that person is telling like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, then instead of judging, just let them tell you like what they're feeling. Yeah, a lot of work. Yeah, marriage is not easy, but it's worth it. And recently we went to marriage and parenting seminar, and Roman is only 8 months, but we already want to be equipped as a parent like already. So we're already like looking ahead of like, hey, I think a lot of time people, what they do is something bad happens, then they go and try to fix it, right? But what can we do right now? What can we do to set up right now? So then we only keep getting better.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. There, like, first of all, there's a lot of things in that I like would love to unpack, but I just want to reiterate some of the things that like stood out to me as I'm listening to you. Is one is like your awareness to know that like if you shutting down or you being like unflexible, like can create even more problems. Like a lot of people don't have that awareness, and it only gets tougher. And when you become unapproachable, there's going to be a point, and I've seen this, there's going to be a point where people just give up
Yeah.
because you're so unapproachable. Like they
Yeah.
can only say so many times, let's talk, or so many times, let's like move forward. But the
Yeah.
more that you drag it back to the past, because it's already done, it's like people start to give up on like, okay, do I really want to solve this? Do I really want to deal with this? Moving forward. And I think sometimes we forget that because we're so set in our ways that we're unwilling to look at, the change for the positive. A change behavior can unlock so many other things. And it's cool that you even said, we want to be equipped as parents and not wait for bad things or disagreements or when things are not so good to actually go get help.
Yeah. And I used to be the kind of person where I'm like, oh, I am who I am. This is how I operate. But that doesn't work.
No.
You have to change. Yeah. Like, because you have to change, you have to evolve. And yeah, that's really good. So I think for anyone that's listening, like, sometimes they're like, oh, I am who I am. This is me. But no, we need a change.
Yeah.
But
It's so true, right? Because no, this is who I am. This is what you're going to get. What you get is what you, but at the end of the day, that has a ceiling. That's
yeah,
what I learned in life is that has a ceiling to the exposure and the circles you actually want to get into. If you have a really big vision.
Mhm.
right? Because that works to maybe childhood, that works to high school, college, to like certain circles, right? But as you start to develop and as you start to build businesses and as you start to become the mom, the wife, it's like that only works for so long. So I love that you said all of that. And so, what advice would you give? Because I see this all the time, and we have even couples in our masterminds and couples that we coach. Is like, what advice would you give to somebody that's deciding to work with their significant other in business? And then maybe like, how do they balance the two?
Yeah, I think figuring out like why you want to work together first in the first, like what's the goal out of this? And if it's just finances, then it's only going to take you so far, right? You're not in there for the long run, right? Because for us, it's passive income for us to be able to serve clients, and then for my husband to join me forces now is there's a need for like the seller side of my business, right? I'm really great with home buyers, first time home buyers and all that. So there was a need. So now he's helping me with sellers and investors, and he understands numbers, right? So it makes sense. So like I think figuring out like why do you want to work together, right? Like, oh, working together sounds great. Two bosses, like power couple, they all sound great until like there's a disagreement, right? So like what's the big goal here? Like why do you guys want to work together in the first place?
Mhm.
Like what's the goal and what's the family goal? I think being having clarity on that first and
Yeah.
up is I think more important. Yeah.
So good. And not only have you grown as far as like bringing Juan into the business, you've also grown in like building and having leverage in your life and bringing somebody into your business. And I think as a leader and as a newer like entrepreneur is like, what have you learned when it comes to hiring?
Mhm.
Right. And any takeaways from that experience so that maybe it can help some of the people that are looking for leverage right now,
Yeah.
and that can minimize hiring the wrong person. Cause that's one mistake that we all like want to avoid. But like, as you hire more people, you are going to make mistakes.
Yeah. I think first is listen to your coach. I know you've been telling me that I need a VA. And I think we had a really not so good experience with our first VA. And I think we were a little bit hesitant, but I thanks to you, because you kind of coached me on how to, find the right person, like what questions to ask and like how to look for them. But I feel like me and my husband, we just want to do everything by ourselves. Like we're like, I don't know, control freak. I don't know what it is, but we need to start leveraging. And we learned that once Roman came into our lives, and, we have a VA, like sometimes we have a showing agent, being able to like just have more leverage and trusting other people, so I think just do it. And even if you have a bad experience, you're going to learn from it, and then you're going to get better at hiring your next person. Yeah.
So it's so true and so good because I don't think that have ever met anybody that has hired perfectly all the
Yeah.
time. Like everyone still, no matter how many people they hire in their lives, because you're at a different phase as a leader, as an entrepreneur. You need different things at different stages in your life as you start to grow your businesses, right? So like who you're looking for today is going to be completely different than who you're looking for 5 years from now,
Mhm.
because your leadership is at a different level, the expectation is at a different level, you've trained people, employees, to be part of your team and part of your culture. So I think it's always evolving as well, right? So I'm curious, like what's next for Pri?
Yeah, I think just working with my husband, I'm really excited on like how we're gonna reach more families, serve more clients, and yeah, it's a blessing, really a blessing to do this with your partner and your best friend. Yeah, sometimes I forget that, so thank you for the reminder. Yeah.
And so, for those that are listening, where are you located? Some people will fall in love with your story, with who you are, right? And so, where are you located if somebody was looking for assistance with real estate?
Yeah, so we're in San Francisco Bay Area. We have a team of 60 agents now. We're in Northern California, Sacramento. We have a team out there as well. So we're everywhere: Peninsula, South Bay, East Bay, Napa. Hey, if you want to go to Napa, let me know.
She'll get on a plane, go to Southern California, wherever your license will go, right?
Exactly.
Where can people connect with you?
At Pri_Ruan. And then, yeah, I'm mostly on IG. Yeah. If you DM me there, then I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
And we will also put it in the show notes. Any last minute advice for anything when it comes to mom life, when it comes to business, when it comes to working with your significant other? Any like things you want to leave our audience with?
I'll just share what I'm experiencing right now. For me, it's like I think every day, if I progress a little bit, then that's good for me, right? Instead of like, oh, like, even if this morning I went to the gym and, I, made some calls, follow-up calls. So that little consistent step, I would say like, just focus on the every day, focus on the activity, focus on like your personal growth. As a mom, sometimes I think we don't put ourselves first, but I think when you put yourself first, then, you get better. Your family gets better. Your marriage gets better, your parenting gets better. So I think take care of yourself first, and whatever that may look like, right? Either that's working out or like eating healthy or finding a community or connection. Maybe some of the moms you're feeling lonely, just go out there and make new friends. Like go on these apps. There's apps for new moms. Like I just came from a networking event. Connection. I think a lot of moms are missing connections and community. There's people out there. Yeah. I think they're just waiting for you to say hi or come to their event. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you brought up something. There's apps, people want to be seen, and you have been a part of like all these different mom groups, which you've also incorporated into your business. So talk a little bit about that. I know we're going to wrap up soon, but like, I just think that that's so much gold of how you've taken that and incorporated it into your business.
Mhm. Yeah. So I was trying to figure out how do I build my business while I live my life, and why I also include Roman, right? So I love meeting new people. I like hearing their story. So this is a great place for me to like meet new moms, right? They're feeling lonely. They might want to just chat. So now you're building community, you're building business, and you're including your kids at the same time, right? So we have these meetups. We go to story time in the library, right? I'm allowed to take Roman for a swim class with a bunch of moms. So you're, again, service first, right? Connection and relationship first, and the business will flow anyway. So the last couple of transactions came from mom's group, but because we became friends first, right? And like I said, like connections, and again, real estate is a contact sport, right? You have to make connections, and when you make genuine connections, it takes you a long way.
So good. And as we wrap up, there's always one question that I ask every single guest on the show is, what does Pri do to play bigger in business or in life?
Right now, after coming from your event, Raquel, and thank you for putting that event, it was a lot to get there with a newborn, and we didn't have help this time, but it made me realize this is exactly why I need to be in rooms that are people are having more success than me. People want to contribute, they want to help you, right? So right now I want to be in more events. I want to be around like rooms like bigger than me, like people that are doing better than me. So yeah, I just want to give you a shout out, like, hey, like be there next year. It was amazing. Yeah, I can't wait for the next event that you're going to put together. But yeah, I think for me, it's like get in rooms and get in that environment. Events do change lives.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know how we're going to top off this year, because this year was pretty phenomenal. We had a lot of like feedback and transformation, and, a lot of great people, not only as speakers, but the people in the room. Right. And so I think there's so much value when it's such an intimate crowd where you guys can meet people. So thank you for the shout out. Pri, I am number one, so proud of you. Like being able to see you transition through all these different things in these last, 2 years? It seems like, from the time meeting you to where you're at today, you've just flourished. You've grown so much. And I know you'll look back and Roman will be so proud as him having you as a mom. And you're such an inspiration. I tell you this all the time to so many people, just with what you say, the wisdom that you share, the value that you bring to every conversation. And I know you will continue to inspire and impact people like you always do. So thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you. And I can't wait to keep playing bigger with you.